to Astrology Victoria with
Dulcie
and Tatiana in the Astrology.
Yeah.
Saturn here, of course.
So if you're new to astrology, you might hear people saying, oh, in my birth chart I have Mars and blah blah blah. So, and you're like, what does that mean? So we want to kind of show you what a birth chart looks like, and eventually we'll show you how to find your own birth chart and figure out what it is telling you.
So if you're new to astrology, and you have not watched our first video of introduction of our take on astrology, then go watch that. And then watch this, because this is going to be it's really 101. It's so basic. We're not going to go in super deep details, because otherwise we're going to just be here for the next 400 years speaking.
We might get lost in space a little bit, but we'll get back on track.
Exactly. So, and the Virgo will get
kind of organize us a little.
Yeah. Okay. Let's hit it. So
let's do it.
Let's see the chart. So should I just speak about this first?
Mm-hmm.
The other one, the natural zodiac chart.
Yeah, there we go.
Can we just share the screen?
It is sharing, so this is what it's sharing.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, so you see, this is what we call the system of the natural zodiac and how a birth chart looks. Basically, if you watched our video, that's your map. And we're going to teach you just what these things mean, so you understand what you're looking at anytime you're looking at a birth chart or you're having an explanation of any sort in astrology. So you might see these little glyphs or symbols. Those are the symbols of each zodiac sign. However, these symbols, you do not need to learn them just right away, but there is an order and a reason why the zodiacal wheel is the way it is. Because as we said in our previous video, it's a cycle, and it always goes in circles and then eventually in spirals. So it always comes back like the seasons. And precisely as this system of astrology is based on the precession of the equinoxes, basically the seasons. When the season starts is in Aries. That's why we call Aries actually the beginning of the year, because it aligns with
Oh my, look at that.
Come on, you can align that one. Yes. It aligns with, thank you, Dulcie. You're so awesome. She's putting the little
I teach English, but on a different format. So I've got the circles down pat for that one. I'm going to
okay. Perfect.
Get on board with this.
Let's get back to the alignment. So the beginning of the zodiac is Aries, because it represents the beginning of spring. So this is
in the northern hemisphere.
In the northern hemispheres, yes.
The world revolves around us.
Revolves around us, yeah. And we take the system as how we see the planets from the Earth. So what's the sky? So what are the planets? Where are the planets? And where are the constellations? If we were standing on Earth, we would see the constellations out there and point towards them. So when the Earth is moving in certain around the sun at certain times of the year, then we have these points, and these points are very, very, very important in the chart. We will not elaborate on those, but eventually. But then what we need to know is that the first thing that happens, or where we start a cycle, it's Aries. You do not need to learn right now all the little glyphs or what they mean, but eventually. So Aries is the beginning. It's like a baby coming out and exploring the world and just going out in the world. And that's why it's number 1. That's the sign of Aries. The sign of Aries corresponds to a house. So you see there's a little number that says 1. But 1 what? It's the first house. Why is it a house? Well, I don't know. Does anybody live there?
It's the home of
a planet.
A planet, exactly.
We'll get there. So each house is basically an area of life. An area of life. So it represents, it's like a stage where the actors of the play are going to develop something. So it's an area of life. It's like the stage, is the container. The house is the container of what's going to develop there. And the sign is the essence or the substance of that container, what's in it. And then the planets are the little actors playing that play. So each sign, house, and planet have a certain correlation. So Aries, being the first house, correlates to Mars. Is, let's say that's the owner of the first house is Mars. He lives there. So imagine if it were a house, that's what it is. So that's the houses, right? So first house. Second house is the house of Taurus. Taurus is that, let's align that little thingy there. Taurus is whatever, that little symbol there. It corresponds to the second house. And the planet that lives or owns that second house is Venus. These we call the rulers. So we will hear the rulers, but it's really who corresponds to that house is the ruler or the owner, let's say, of that house. So Venus owns the second house. The third house, it corresponds to the zodiacal sign of Gemini, and it is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the owner of Gemini. He loves it there. Blah, 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 blah. We'll go into that later. Then the fourth house is Cancer. And Cancer is ruled by the moon. So the owner of Cancer, she loves living there, is the moon. Fourth house. The fifth house is Leo, the king, the lion. Wow. And who's the king? The lion. The lion is the sun. So the one who lives in the fifth house or rules the fifth house is the sun, because it's like the biggest thing, the most shiny, bright star we have in our solar system is the sun. And that's Leo, the king. Then we go into Virgo, and Virgo is ruled, or the owner of that sixth house is Mercury as well. He owns two houses like that one. He owns which one? 1, 2, 3. Did you guess it? Yes, the third house and the sixth house of Virgo.
So Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury.
Mercury lives in those houses and is attached to those signs. Then let's move up to the seventh house. This is the house of Libra. And Libra is ruled by Venus as well. That's another one who has two houses. You know, those rich people, right? Venus owns or lives in Taurus, or the second house, and in the seventh house and Libra. And let's move up to Scorpio. Scorpio. It's the eighth house. And the one that owns that house is Pluto, the outermost planet. We love Pluto, don't we?
Yes. So this is where we would differ. So I study ancient Hellenistic astrology, and Tatiana studies
evolutionary astrology.
Exactly. So ancient astrologers would say that
Mars. Oh, we forgot Mars.
Yeah, Scorpio is ruled by Mars. But
Mars, no, absolutely. It's ruled by Mars. But when Pluto was discovered, we added Pluto into the mix as the evolution of life, or consciousness of the planet. Then there was more information to have. So in ancient astrology, it was Mars who was. So they're roommates in this house. Let's just put it this way: it's co-ruled. They both.
That'd be an interesting household.
Oh my gosh. I know, it's an interesting household having Mars and Pluto. They're roommates in the eighth house. And the sign of Scorpio, oh my God. If you have Mars and Pluto in your own birth chart conjunct, come talk to us.
Yeah, let's have a chat.
Let's have a chat. You want to talk to us.
Okay.
Then move on. The co-rulers.
So ancient astrology would say that this is so Sagittarius would be ruled by Jupiter, and that's it, right?
Yeah,
modern
Jupiter.
too.
Modern is just Jupiter. Jupiter loves his ninth house. It's probably a huge house. It's a mansion. Jupiter owns a mansion, I bet. He
Totally.
does, yeah.
It's like the biggest mansion.
Biggest mansion ever is Jupiter. Okay, move on to the Capricorn house, and this one it's owned, or who lives there or rules it? Saturn. I love Saturn. Let's love Saturn from today. Even if you don't know anything about him, just send love to Saturn, him, her. I mean, let's refer. I mean, why do we use him and her? It's terrible. But let's say Saturn. It's ruled by Saturn, and it's a very probably interesting house. We'll talk about it later.
Mm-hmm.
Let's move on to Aquarius. And this one also has two rulers or two roommates. The first one in ancient astrology is
Saturn.
Saturn. So you see, he's got two houses. You know, he's got the next door.
Yeah.
He owns both apartments. And the other, so the roommate of Saturn or modern ruler, who just moved in not long ago, is Uranus. So they both are, roommates in this house.
I don't think Saturn would be happy about that.
I don't think that's so either.
Uranus coming in and
as long
I'm going to change all of this around.
Exactly. If Uranus stays in his room, I think Saturn would be okay.
Uranus will not stay in his room.
I know, that's the problem. He would go out the window. Yeah. And Saturn will probably be putting all these rules of the house, like, you cannot do this, you cannot do that. And Uranus will go like, what? Anyway, we're jumping ahead, but now you get the gist of it, right? So these two kind of rule this sign.
Okay.
And the last one, so the last piece of our spiral is Pisces, or the 12th house. So Pisces also has a co-rulership. So who is the first owner of this house?
That would be Jupiter.
So Jupiter, big house. He owns also Sagittarius, or the ninth house. He rules Sagittarius and lives in the ninth house. And the 12th house also got a new roommate for Jupiter, which is
Neptune.
Neptune moved in when Neptune was discovered. So this is important to know because it is very key to understand that when you're learning astrology, it's a blend of what every little character brings to the mix, to the stage, which is the house, to the action, which would be the sign or the tone of the theater play is the sign, and then the actors are the actual planets. So we have these three things. So that's the first explanation. Now we're going to go into what the houses or areas of life mean. And as you can see, because it's divided in 12, like a pie, each area is very important to understand its meaning and its correlation. Aries, first house, and Aries, first house, and then the planet that lives there, Mars, right?
Again, yeah, so there would be a difference as well. So if you're studying ancient or Hellenistic astrology, the first house would be whichever sign is rising, is at the horizon at your birth. So if Aries is rising at your birth, then your first house would be Aries. If Taurus is rising at your birth, the first house would only be Taurus. There would be no Aries energy there whatsoever. But in modern astrology, it's different.
Yes, so in order to not get you confused with that, which is fine. No, that's because you'll see this is all the things like, what Aries rising? So basically the rising, so that you see that line, can you point to the line? Because we're just seeing the basic charts first.
I'm going to just move the little circle.
Yeah. So do you have an arrow? So okay, that line there is called, that first section of the line is called the rising, and it will stand, that's the rising. So that's when you were born, at the time you were born, it's exactly what Dawson said. The sign that was rising in the horizon, that's the sign you work with. And like she said, in ancient astrology, it would only correspond to that sign, every single house. So every single of these lines are called cusps. So every line is called the cusp because it's where the next house begins. And that's also going to be very important in understanding as you talk astrology. But let's not get too confused with too many terms. It's more that rising, just know that is extremely important. The sign that was rising or the ascendant, and the opposite side of the line is what's called the descendant. So it was the sign that was at the opposite end, right? That's the descendant. Those two lines are very important. And that's why the natural zodiac begins with that rising being Aries, because it's the beginning of the spring. And now we can see the other middle points, which would be the midpoint here. So the spring begins there, and then we have the beginning of the summer in this line. That's where the summer begins. Oops, yeah. Make the summer begin. So that's where summer begins. So all these points are beginning points. They have a name, like Dulcie.
So this would be the beginning of summer for us in the northern hemisphere. This would be the beginning of winter in the southern hemisphere.
Absolutely. But the beginning points are called cardinal. Mm-hmm. Cardinal just means it's beginning. It's a beginning. It's the beginning of something, right?
It's the beginning of a season, if we're following the season metaphors.
Yes. Of a season, of a cycle. Again, it's a beginning. And then what we see, the descendant, right, is the beginning of the...
So the descendant?
The descendant is the beginning of the fall. That's where the fall begins. Again, these lines that form that square are that cross are very important in your chart. These are extremely important. The descendant is the beginning of the fall, and then the last line in that cross, you could even guess it before Dulcie even points it. I'm sure you already guessed it. Yes, she's moving. Did you guess it? Yes, I know you did. And that's the beginning of the winter. And the winter, as you can see, in every cycle, the beginning is this new energy. It's this little baby. So this is when we come into why it's a cycle. The beginning is the little sprouts, the little flowers. Everything's just blossoming. The tiny leaves in the spring. When it reaches summer, it's like, oh, it's like in full bloom, and it's going to, it's almost just growing, and it's beautiful. Then the fall is the harvest. These beautiful fruit are ripe and ready. You can get the fruit, you can eat it. It's the harvest time, and then the winter, everything goes to sleep. The leaves fall and die, and everything begins again. Mm-hmm. So this is why it's so important to understand that it's a cycle, and everything goes through little cycles, bigger cycles, huge cycles, mega super big cycles. Mm-hmm. So that's the progression of those things. So let's go now that we saw the importance of that cross or beginning points and why these cycles happen. Let's go into what the houses mean. That will be the last thing we're going to explain today.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you want to see our faces?
All right.
So what they mean. Okay. These are a little bit general meanings of the houses, but let's say we took this one from the internet, but we did. We're going to elaborate. It's not ours.
So we have about 7 minutes before our Astro chat starts. Okay. So we're gonna be quick.
So as we could say, the first house is the beginning, and what is the beginning? When you're born, like you are embodied in a body. I am. It's me. It's the self. Oh, who am I? I was just born out of the mom, and there's this little body. So it defines the body and the self. Like, who am I? That's the energy. And that's what we call it, the I am, the awareness of self, the appearance, or the outward personality. Mm-hmm. Then the little body becomes a little bit aware of its surroundings, and that's why we call it the I have. It's like it starts scrolling and seeing, oh, what is this? What is that? And sensing through the world. And oh, I like this, I don't like this. Literally, that's why it's called the values, right? Because that let's say baby literally goes through sensory experience of like, don't like, and that's why in a larger, as we evolve, we call it the I have. What do I possess? What do I, not so much what do I have as more as what do I value, right? Because I like, I don't like, and then that's why we talk in this house about money or possessions or value. And value is not only money, value is everything we value. Okay,
so and just to explain a little bit more, so whichever sign represents that house, it will describe something about you. So if your first house is Aries, Aries will describe something about your personality or how people perceive you, your physical appearance. And whatever planets are in that house will describe something about you. And wherever Mars is, the ruler of Aries, will also describe something about your personality. Okay. Yeah. And same for all of the houses.
Yeah.
Okay.
For every house, you will blend that. We'll make more videos more specific about that. But yes, that's absolutely right. Then, so we're moving the first, second, the third is when I say like, don't like, then there is, what is this? The mind tries to put a label on things. That's why it's called the house of the mind, the thinking and the communication, because once you put a label to it, you can actually communicate to somebody. Dulcie, I don't like this. What is this? It is an apple. I don't like. And Dulcie says, oh, let me taste the apple. I actually like the apple. So, and we just name everything and put concepts. And maybe when we were in the Neanderthals or whatever, it was kind of basic, but the mind now is like huge. So the mind could be just literally anything from anything. Every single concept that's been put out in the world and thought, it's mental. And that's what the third house is, because again, we feel, we label, then we move on. That little baby or person moves into the fourth house. Who is around me? Oh, that's a mama and that's a papa, and that's, it's everything that's around that has been labeled and where it feels safe in an environment that's close. Okay, I feel safe here because or unsafe, depending, but let's put it in a nice way. That's why we call it the house of the home, the parents, or the roots, or the inner security, because it's exactly what it is. Baby's there, mama gives them food, baby happy or not happy if it's like, I don't know, vegetables. But it just feels that safety or homey feel. And then we move into the fifth house, and the fifth house is when baby gets a little bit social and it wants to play, because now it's the toys, and now it found, what can I play with? And oh, I found something that I could just bounce forever in a bouncy thing, or just playing. Is this exploration of how fun life is. You know how children just like to play. So the child is growing up, and it goes out and it goes to the sandbox and is playing for hours in the sandbox. And then it's creating things and making a drawing. It says, look, mama, look at my drawing. And they're so happy to be there. So it's the personal creativity and personal expression, because it's like exactly that. I made this drawing, mom, look at it. The mom said, oh, it's so pretty.
Wow, what nice lines and circles.
Little line, what is it? It is a mommy eating an ice cream. Oh, I see it totally. So that's why it's we call it also the romance house, like, because it's also where there's this flirtatious energy. When you fall in love, those first moments are very playful. That's why it's called the house of romance, because it's playful.
Should we do one more house and then
of the self?
We'll pause and we'll make a new video for the rest of the house.
Yeah, because and the last house of what we call the self is the house of I serve. Why? Because as the child starts evolving, it realizes that it can actually have a function and and their body's more separate from everything else, and they start realizing, oh, I have a function and I can do something, and oh, what is me? You know, we're beginning to separate from the initial I was born into, wait a minute, I am actually separate. I'm actually separate, and I have my own being that I am exploring and knowing, and maybe I can do something with this. So this is, that's why we call it the work, health, and service and self-improvement, because there is almost like a culmination point of that first part of the wheel, which is the first part of the pie, that bottom part, which is just me. It's all about me. The first part of the pie is me, and my evolution. And then in our next video, we will add on the
others, the rest of the world.
The rest of the world and how that plays out. So I hope you like this, and it's clear for you. So when you come to our chats, you can know what's going on with you, and just, you know, get into these really deep. Okay, so shall we wrap it up?
We shall.
1, 2, 3.